Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video, and today I'm gonna share my tips on how you can write fast. So I just finished writing my first ever romance novel. I have written fancy romance before, but never a contemporary romance. And for me, it was a completely new genre. And you might think that it may take longer because of that to write the book or draft the book. But I managed to write a 70,000 word draft in 2 months and 4 days. And so that gave me an idea to give you my tips on how you can write fast, either if it's a genre that you're really familiar with, or if you're participating in NaNoWriMo, or whatever you're doing. Here's my tips on how you can write fast or faster. And of course, everybody's schedules and days look different. You may have more or less time every day to write, but I think these tips can be used on however much you have in your day, if you have 50 minutes or 25 minutes or 5 hours. But these things have guided me in finding time and making time in my day to write, and most of the days during this 2 months and 4 days I only wrote for 25 minutes a day, and I still managed to hit that goal in a little bit over 2 months. So I believe that the trick to writing a first draft fast in like 2 to 3 months is to have done your work beforehand. So here I'm talking about outlining, getting to know your characters and their character arc, what they're gonna learn in the end, because that will make it so much easier writing from that character's point of view. And if you've followed me for a long time, you know that outlining is my jam. I love to outline. I make a very detailed outline where I plan out scene by scene, like every single scene in every single chapter in the book. But of course you don't have to do it like that. You can outline just by putting a beginning, middle and an end, or just outlining the beginning and the end. But having an idea on where you're gonna end up, what you're working towards, will help you to not get stuck or write yourself into a corner. And sometimes I have made an outline and I still write myself into a corner, and what I'm doing then I will talk about a little bit later. But having done those first, like for me, crucial steps of planning out what I'm gonna write, it makes it easier to write that. And it's of course different if you're a pantser or if you're a plotter. I consider myself a plotter. I love to outline, I love to getting to know my characters and planning out the character arc. Even just writing small little scenes from the characters' point of views before, or little dialogue scenes between the characters, can really help me to get into the mood and the mindset of each character. Because when I have tried to draft a book without getting to know my characters beforehand, I feel the first couple of chapters I'm stumbling my way through the story because I can't really find footing anywhere. I don't feel connected to the characters, and if I don't know my goal with them, they don't know their goals. And I can't stress this enough, but don't feel like you need to be a plotter or outline your book beforehand, because not every writer is like this, and that's totally fine, that's okay. But I think most writers would agree on that you should know who your characters are, what their goals are, and where you're gonna end up in the story, what they're gonna learn throughout the story. But you don't need to have every single step on the way there outlined, but you just need to know in which direction you're working towards, because then writing towards that direction becomes so much easier than just writing with no goal. The characters have no motivation, and I think you understand what I mean. And tip number 2 is the research. If you're writing a book that contains a lot of specific terms, if the characters are doing something, they're at a place or whatever that you haven't like personally done yourself or know anything about. I am very bad at doing research, so I tend to stick to things that I know. But tip number 3 is that if you do not tend to do your research before, and for example, when I wrote my romance book, one of my characters is I don't recall the English name for this word, but I can put it up here if I find it. And I have no clue on what it's like to own a bar and to be working at this place, and what is the rules of owning a bar, and I didn't research anything going into this. With that said, the actual technical stuff of owning a bar is not really relevant to the story, but it is still part of his job. So I need to be mentioning this, and I need to explain certain things about his job because they are at his workplace. I didn't do any research before, and I came across a bunch of problems in the drafting process where I was like, I think there is a rule about this somewhere that you should like be serving food or something, so I needed to add a kitchen to the bar. And I was also thinking about drinks, like how many drinks should a bar have, and the cost of everything, the typical like work day for someone owning a bar. So I stumbled across some problems along the way because I hadn't done any research before. Here's my tip number 3. I recommend not to go and actually Google these things, but to put in like brackets in your document, like research this and this and this. Don't forget to look up this, or blah blah blah. That is my best tip if you come across these problems while writing, to not jump out of the document and go research, because you can so easily become distracted by everything else online. You can go book shopping. I have done that. I have looked into books that I want to buy, going into my publisher's website, seeing what new things they're publishing. You can so easily become distracted when you have so easy access to internet. So put in brackets, put in like a different color, put in a comment. I don't know how you work, but just put in something there where you need to research something, and make a note that you should research this during the editing process, because that is the time to fill in things that you forgot to write before. So that is the perfect time to do more research, I think, because that doesn't hinder your momentum that you're building up when you write. And when you're trying to write fast, momentum is key. So we have done all the beginning steps before we start actually writing the book. But when you start writing a book and start to draft, routines is everything. And the routines doesn't have to be extravagant and lush and you have to make yourself a cup of tea every day or light a candle or put on some music. It can be that if you have time. But if you don't have time, maybe sitting down, focusing only on your computer or your paper, whatever you're writing on, for maybe even 15 minutes. And doing that every single day sets up a routine. I am one of those people that tend to have word count goals each and every day. So when I wrote my romance novel, I had 800 words a day minimum as the word count goal. And I would sit down and write for 25 minutes every single day, and that became my routine. I would put on a Google timer of 25 minutes, but that builds momentum. Doing something every single day builds momentum, because when you come to a day when you are not writing anything, will, for me at least, automatically make me think that there's something a little bit off, that my routine, my day is off, and that will make you think about your story and think about maybe if you're not writing today, you're gonna write tomorrow and what you're gonna write next. And a tip that I have heard so many writers use is that you shouldn't really search for the inspiration or the perfect writing mood, because it doesn't really exist. There comes periods in your life where you are really inspired and you have so much love for the craft and you feel like writing is fun. And then there comes periods where you don't want to write at all. You don't like to sit down at your computer and you have to drag the words out of you by force. The trick is to just keep writing, even if you're really inspirational or even if you hate your novel or hate writing at the time. The trick is to keep writing, especially when you have a goal of drafting something really fast or drafting something in a 3-month, 4-month period. Sitting down, despite of those days, is so important to actually get to the finish line of the book. And that leads me on to my next tip. Even if you don't want to write a day, do it anyway. And what I tend to do when I don't feel like writing is to make more time than usual. So instead of 25 minutes, I'm giving myself an hour maybe. And that is of course if you have time. And then I tend to put on a writing live stream. Because if you're writing with someone else, even if it's a virtual writing live stream and it was filmed months ago, you still have someone holding you accountable to writing in those 25 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. If you feel like you don't get into the mood and the mindset of writing and you can't really build momentum that day, my tip for you, if that's the case, is to put away all the distractions. If that is a book, your phone, your tablet, take away internet access. I don't do this every single time I write, but I actually do it more often now than not. My phone doesn't have to be in front of me or on the table or beside the computer or anything. It doesn't really have to be that. Just be having it in my room, lying on my bedside table. That makes my brain think that your phone is just mere steps away. You can reach for it now and look on Instagram to see if anyone's updated anything. And so putting all those things in another room, closing the door, having just you and your computer or your paper, whatever you're writing on, just having those things in the room makes you focus so much easier and faster and better, in my opinion. And the last tip that I'm sharing with you is a tip that I tend to do very early on in the process, even before I start to write a book, and that is to set yourself goals. I talked about having a word count goal for every single day. It doesn't work for every writer out there, having word count goals, because it can become really stressful if you don't hit that goal and you can feel really disappointed in yourself. It can knock you down not hitting goals. But setting the bar really low helps. So if you have writing 100 words a day or 200 words a day, or writing a sentence a day, that is still a goal, but it doesn't have to be harder than that. For example, you have a goal of writing 100 words and then you write 1000 words a day. Your brain will think as that as a reward, and that will make you feel good about yourself and your writing, because that will make your brain want to do that again. So the next day you will hit 100 words and you will keep writing to work to maybe 1000 words or even 800 words or 500 words, because that's really how the brain works. Your brain gets rewarded by hitting goals and then overachieving on those goals. So the romance novel that I wrote in just a little bit over 2 months, I set myself 800 words a day, and I was gonna write 74,000 words a month, and the word count goal was 70,000 words, and I was gonna hit that by the end of the 3rd month. And some days I wrote less than 800 words, but most days I wrote 800 words, and I felt good about that. And some days I even wrote more than 800 words, and that motivated me to keep going, to try to hit that goal the next day, and the next, and the next, and the next. And that's how I wrote a book in a little bit over 2 months. And these tips that I just shared with you will be my go-to when it comes to drafting in the future as well, because I like to write things really fast so that I get them out of my system. So I want to say thank you for watching this video. Leave a like and a comment below and let me know if you have any more tips on writing fast, and subscribe, because that's the best way to support my channel. I post a new video every week, every Thursday, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!